comes on because it doesn't always pick up right away. So I actually had to like record the intro of like, hey, this is Legends of Tabletop, because I've had 4 or 5 podcasts where it just cuts that front part off, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Which is cool, because then when it does record from the beginning, you get all this random meaningless chatter of me complaining about StreamYard. And then I don't edit video, so it's all there. I'm like, fuck, I don't care.
Yeah.
All right, so while we're still rambling here, I'm gonna tweet out that we're alive. I'm sure this is riveting podcasting for anybody that comes in and watches this shit later.
Of course.
Why won't this? There we go. Okay, cool. All right. What happened? What's going on? Go back to return. Okay, cool. Okay, shows that we're recording. Great. Hello and welcome to the Legends of Tabletop podcast. We've got a random BS session tonight. We're going to be talking about board games and RPG gaming. We have one other, I was going to say host. I guess we could call him a host, showing up. But of course, he's always late. So you can gather it's one of 2 people who are regularly on the show. But tonight, I've got 2 other people who are already here. Sean, take it away.
Hi, Sean Epperson from Thing12 Games, and I'm just here chilling with one of my good friends, John.
And I'm Kurt, founder and co-host of the MFGCast. Hey, everybody.
And Kurt is a super regular, or at least as regular as we can get our fear game in.
It's usually not my fault, so I feel pretty good about that. So
yeah, I appreciate that. So I think it's been like almost a year since we've gotten together to do very similar pods, as it turns out. I think our 158 was kick ass and play games, and you guys were on, and we talked about board games. So maybe we just make this like a yearly thing.
There we go.
Anniversary.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to steal a little bit from Kurt in the MFGcast, and then we'll do like a now playing. So, Sean, what have you been playing lately? What cool things are you getting to the table?
Actually, quite a few things. So I have to jump to my BGG list here to look at stuff I've been playing. Probably some of the cooler things we played. We actually got to play Imperial Spells in Steam. So that is it's a train game. It's pretty new. And it's by level 99. So normally, a lot of their games are either card-based or kind of like lower scope as far as like how much space they take up, with one exception. This is a game where basically putting out these futuristic-looking trains in this world, you're trying to gather resources so you can generate some spells and get more effects. You've got this giant board. You've got these giant cities that are out, and if you can deliver certain amounts of resources to the cities, and you can collect these point cards, it's a huge game. And the game comes in a box that's just massive. They actually sent it to us for a review, and I'm not a huge fan of train games in general, but I really dug this because it was sort of like action programming. Because as you get these spells, the spells are cars that you're adding to your train line. So there are all these actions that you can take, but you take them in a sequential order. So as you get new ones, you slot them in, and you decide, well, do I want this to be in the 3rd row or the 4th row? Because you're doing all these columns of actions. It's really cool. It's really, really puzzly and thinky, and there's a little bit of take that. Of course, that was one of the cards that I picked up. It allowed me to blow up another person's car whenever I chose that action. Like, oh, you just bought that. Guess what? It's gone now.
Nice.
So that's been really cool.
That's weird that level 99 games decided to go from their smaller like card skirmish games to something big and massive in a train game of all things.
Yeah, I mean it's in the world of, oh gosh, what's that other, like, they've got one of the massive games that's card based, and I'm spacing on the name, but it's in that same world. So
I see.
It's kind of like a little bit of anime look to it, as far as that goes, but
yeah, I'm trying to think of what that is. I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't
no, not Sidereal. It's a different one. But the other thing I thought was really cool about this is you've got just tons and tons of stuff. And of course, reboxing all that's kind of a pain in the butt. However, they actually include a sheet and it tells you specifically, okay, put these things in this spot and these things go here. And then you layer these tiles on top of this. Like the rule book was really good. The insert showed you exactly how to put it away. It was just, everything was super well thought out. I was just blown away by how good it was.
That's cool. I feel like everybody should do that. God, I'm so sick of like, we did that because we got our basement finished, as you can tell in the back here, and just hauling out some of those games, and we're like, oh my god, why is this game so it's just terribly just busting at the seams, and you open it up and you're going, what happened here? It's just like somebody dropped a bomb in this little box, and then you try to put it back together and you're like, what the hell's going on here? I can't even put it back together.
Yeah, I was really concerned, like when we opened up, like, man, there's a lot of stuff that's not, because everything comes in bags and you got to like punch boards and all that kind of stuff. Like, is all this going to go back in there? But it totally does very easily. And they specifically show you exactly how it's done. So yeah, good on them.
Very cool.
What about you, Kurt? What have you been playing?
Playing a couple things. Actually, we actually are going to have a review coming out tomorrow for a game called The Astute Goose, which is it's funny because when you hear that kind of name, you're going, okay, is that a children's game? What is this game? But it's actually part of the Thames and Cosmos Brainwave series, where there's 3 different games and they help with your memory. And we've had a nice little partnership with Thames and Cosmos. We've reviewed some of their games, and someone that works for them sent out something and said, is there any of these that looks good to you? And I actually was looking at, usually I just kind of skim through and I look at a name and I go, this is the name I want. Well, I decided to read everything this time, which is probably good. And I saw Brainwaves. I'm like, that's interesting. What is this about? And it's a series of games where, yeah, like I said, it's scientist approved and it actually helps different parts of your memory. And in this Astute Goose, it's basically you have a lineup and you're trying to pick out a certain thing in the lineup. So it's like random dude with a little like old school criminal mask on, and then you have to pick out one of 3 things if you roll these dice. So one of them is you pick out a color of their shirt. You pick out this guy's either wearing something. Is another one of the things is what is he wearing, like a scarf or like a necklace or like a bow tie, something like that. And then the other thing is you have to remember what kind of animal he's holding or what's on him, basically. So it's like a rat with a little criminal mask or like a goose with a criminal mask and stuff like that. And depending upon the difficulty you put cards 1 through 6, or you can stack them up and then have smaller lineups so you can try to remember less. But each time you look at them, and then you flip them over, and then each time you roll a number, and then the article or animal or whatever, and then you have to pick whatever column, and then pick what that is, and then say what it is. So it's like, if it's a striped shirt, you have to remember striped shirt. And yeah, it's really interesting. It got my attention because I have a terrible short-term memory. I walk into another room, I go, what am I doing here? What did I come here for?
I hate that. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, and it's not super concerning, but sometimes it does. When I, even doing our podcast, like every once in a while, I'll start talking to somebody and I'll be like, oh shit, I totally forgot what I was going to ask you, and then it's embarrassing because it's like I have this person on, I had these things written down, or maybe I just had something in my head and then all of a sudden it just blanks out. So I thought, well, this will be interesting to see how this works, And the one we reviewed is done by Reiner Knizia of all people. And I was like, wow, he actually is doing something that's, a little more brainy and stuff like that. I'm not saying that he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm sure he's a smart man, but it was a cool little fun game. It cost fairly cheap. It cost about the same as buying a Exit game. So yeah, it's fun.
I'm sure he's smart. He's only a doctor.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, one of many things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
and you said you were playing a couple other things as well?
Yeah, and then we got a review of Stellar Leap by Weird Draft Games too. It's actually that game. I actually played the prototype of that back when we went to our first Gen Con in 2015, and for some reason never picked it up. I always wanted to, and I never did. And she's like, Carla was looking for reviewers, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to play this. This is a 4X space game where you're trying to mine / populate in space and stuff like that. It's really fun. So yeah, it was fun to do that too. So
cool.
Yeah.
And our missing host is showing up. So who else do we have here tonight?
You have Jesse.
What's going on, buddy?
Nothing much.
What do you?
I showed up right on Jesse time.
Yeah, so we debated on whether or not we should wait or whether or not we should start, and I was like, we'll just start. We'll slot them in somewhere.
Yeah.
So what are you playing these days?
Let's see. About halfway through, finally playing Charterstone, which is only like 5 or 6 years old. But it took us forever. And I believe the last time that we all got together, I was playing the Pandemic Legacy Season 2. And we finally finished that, and now we move on to another Legacy game. So, and I have a bunch of other old games sitting on my shelf, like Dixit, that I just picked up, even though that's like a decade old almost. But
that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think
right now I need
games
games that I can also play with my kids. So
yeah. What were you saying, Sean?
I would say when it comes to legacy games, you get a pass for them, coming into them late or whenever, because they take so long, like trying to like get a dedicated group together and all that. Like, yeah, I've got Gloomhaven, and we've been able to get one playthrough. So yeah.
Yeah, no, we have a few people that we play with on a regular basis, but we are able to get together like once a month. And so you play 1 or 2 games if you're lucky. And when you're talking a legacy game, you're playing 12, 13, 15 games. So it takes that many months for us to get through an entire game. So
and then there's pressure to play that game when they come over, because they're like, shit, well, if we don't do it this time, when are we going to do it?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I recently I'd asked you guys, Sean and Kurt, about Gold West and I think War Chest as well. I wound up picking them both up, and they're both really fun. We've been playing quite a bit of that in the last week or so. Gold West is it's a medium weight Euro game. You're prospectors, you're collecting resources, and there's a Mancala mechanism where you're taking those resources, which are metals, gold, silver, and copper, and also building materials, and you cycle them through your bins, and whichever bin you choose, they're 0 at the top and 3 at the bottom. So if you put them at the bottom, you get more points as you start cycling them up. But it takes you longer to have access to those resources. And each turn you activate your track, so you'll move your resources up, and then you either build or loot. And if you don't have building materials, you have to loot, which is then negative points on the board. You still get the resources, but you don't take that coin and flip it to your player board. So like if I took a gold resource, which, maybe had 3 gold, resource units on it, I'd put that on my player board, and that's how much influence I would have in gold, in the gold market, I guess. When you loot it, the coin just goes back in the box. So you don't get that influence because you don't have your camp or a settlement built in that area. And then there's a little boomtown section, kind of like when you go in with your gold and you trade it in at the, little town. And it has different end game scoring bonuses. So like it may be you get extra point if you have your camps built next to an opponent's camp, or if you have your camps built around the lake in the center, or if you have all your tents built at the outside edge of the board. So there's, it's a point smorgasbord, which is a lot of fun. It plays pretty quick. It plays in a little less than an hour. Of course, I've only played it with 2 because that's our normal routine. But it's a lot of fun. And, Jesse, that's 5 years old, came out in 15. So, it's just one of those things where you see a game somewhere, somebody posts something on Twitter or Instagram, or you get into a conversation. Oh, we played, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, let me do some research. Let me watch some videos. Let's, what is this game about? And, oh, it's 5 years old. Okay. Well, I guess I missed the boat.
Yeah.
Luckily, with a well-designed board game, time doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, and there's only 32 million board games out there, so you're not going to play every single one unless you're Sean.
Yeah. Who got 14 shipments this week?
I know, right?
Guilty.
For sure. So that really kind of leads to the question of this, cult of the new for board games and stuff, and this fear of missing out with like Kickstarter and things like that. It seems endemic to board gaming, affects people in other aspects as well, but it seems really like to the forefront for board gaming. What do you, as a designer, Sean, what do you think that is?
I think it's partially like kind of an attention span thing. Like people always like the new and shiny. I mean, that's just like psychology in general. People new things, right? And the newest thing that you can possibly think of is anything on Kickstarter, because that's the bleeding edge. That's the stuff that's coming out that nobody's really had a chance. And so there's a bit of mystery there. Like, ooh, what kind of things are going to be going on there? It looks cool. Like that's a theme I like, or that's a minis game that I'm really interested in. So I think there's always that interest of wanting to know, that curiosity, like, oh, I bet that's really cool, that kind of keeps driving that forward. And the fact that people are pretty much, with very few rare exceptions, guaranteed to get whatever they back on Kickstarter. So you're not worried about backing some video game on Kickstarter and 5 years later it might come to fruition if they weren't able, managed to plan correctly. Well, likely not. It's going to spiral out of control. Like, hey, great, 5 years later is nothing. So yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Kurt, you have any?
Well, speaking primarily as a podcaster, like, it was something back when we first started. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to keep up with this. It's just like, got to play every new game. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we're not the Dice Tower. We don't have, money to spend, and we can't, this isn't our regular job. I actually have a job that I have to do. This is something that I'm actually doing for a hobby, but I'm also spending money. I'm actually going the opposite way. So it's like, I'm going to do exactly what I'm going to, what I want to do. And it was a hard lesson to learn, but it's one of those that, like, fortunately, I would say, like, FOMO is something that is not as prevalent with me anymore, because it's like, I'm not going to get every single thing out there, and we're just going to, we're going to do exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to do it at a pace that we like to do it, And I've even had to, tell some companies, it's like, we're not going to be able to get this out in like two or 3 weeks. Like, I actually want to play it on a consistent basis and play it as many times as I can play it, or we can play it, to where we can come up with a good, review for it. I just don't want to play it once or twice and then go, I think I have it, and then, come to, reviewing it, which, believe me, I have done. And sometimes, you listen to it back and you go, I didn't talk half as much as, or, I could have talked twice as much about this as I did, and it's like, I've had to go back and say, this is why we're doing this for you, to give you the best review on it, and so, like, even like, talking about reviewing that Stellar Leap, like, that game is 4 years old, or however old it is, and it's like that. Even though it's not a newish game, it's one of those games that probably there might be some people out there that haven't heard of it, so it's going to be new to them, so it's going to be something where it's like, I didn't even know this thing existed, and then they're going to find it and they're going to be like, this is exactly down my alley, and then I'm going to buy it and play it, and then it's going to be their new thing. It doesn't have to be something that's 2020. So
Right. And I guess, Jesse, you're not worried about FOMO. You just picked up a 15-year-old board game.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But no, I mean, I have the urge, I still I listen to the podcast and watch the YouTube channels, and I see all the Kickstarter releases, and it's there is a lot out there, and it can be, especially for a person who wants to try to be on the current edge of board gaming. It's a lot. It's it used to be 10 years ago, it used to be whatever was on the shelf of your local gaming store or Walmart or Target or something,
Right.
But all of a sudden, with the huge boost in Kickstarter, we are getting a lot of different games now, and a lot of people, who the mainstream probably wouldn't have attached to because they'd want to take the risk on it, and it's really paid off. But at the same time, going into a store and seeing one new game a month is a lot different than going on Kickstarter and seeing the 30 games that are currently going to be closing in the next week.
Yeah. It was like eBay when eBay first started. Everybody was watching auctions and jumping in and outbidding. I went through that whole phase too. It wasn't board games, just like whatever random shit. But you have that same sort of impetus. Do you find it as maybe more of an RPG player? Do you because you get into that thing of well, I'm gonna buy this RPG I know I'm never gonna play just because I want to read the fluff, or I want to check out the mechanics, or maybe there's something that I can pull from this game to throw in something that I'm running. Do you feel that pull a little bit more for tabletop?
Oh, absolutely. I have I tend not to do a lot of hardcovers with RPGs anymore, maybe because just storage is a pain. But I have nearly unlimited storage on my computer, so I have I go and buy PDFs of games all the time, and knowing full well I will never play this. But RPGs are a little different than board games because at least if I buy this book, I might be able to use some aspect of it. I can steal some mechanics or steal some world concepts and everything like that. So I find at least a little use for them here and there when I buy them. But yeah, I could never imagine having to actually build a hardcover collection or a board game collection or anything like that. The money that would go into that. I bow to you guys.
Yeah,
I find myself picking up a lot of games more from the older time recently.
Oh, really?
Stefan Feld's Luna was from 2010, and that's a new one that I got. Just because there's a lot of older stuff that I haven't played or whatever, and I'm wanting to look at see what are they doing in that game, what sort of mechanics that we're seeing now that have spawned from those, and what are some interesting takeaways that I could be applying to my own designs and different experiences that I can have. So I think there's a lot of stuff from the past that people have either overlooked or sort of forgotten about. And actually, I'm starting to see a little bit of that online as well. Like some people talking about, oh yeah, we're playing older games today, or we're playing games that are in our collection that we haven't played in 5 years or whatever. It's almost sort of a little bit of a pushback from the new hotness. Let's go check out the old hotness again.
Have there ever been times where you've picked up an older game to study the mechanics of it, to possibly not, I don't know the right word, not exploit, but to progress a mechanic that maybe hasn't been really looked into further? I know there's a lot of games that'll come out, and then all of a sudden you'll see a bunch of games that kind of start to mimic that. Has there ever been a game that you've picked up and said, what, that actually hasn't really been looked into yet, that maybe you could develop further?
Let me think. some of the ones that I'm thinking of are the ones that actually have had bigger production values, like the big waterfall. I'm spacing on the name. Niagara was a game. I think it was like 2010 or 2011, something around there. And the way that was designed was basically you've got these little canoes that are on these plastic discs, and the whole board, the box, and everything. The board comes out, sits on top of the box, and you've got a little waterfall that cascades off the end of the box. And so you're moving your boats on these clear pieces of acrylic that are sitting in the middle of this river, and then as a river tile gets pushed off, then you add it to the blowing river mechanic. Like, this is really cool, but I haven't really seen any other games that are doing, you know, that level of production as far as, like, you know, this physical element that's, you know, present in the game and allowing you to interact with it in this way. So I've been looking at things like that.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. I like certain mechanics in games and things like that. So, like, you know, when I see stuff, I think we've talked about this maybe before, but like when Santorini first came out and everybody was, you know, posting pictures like, oh, this is great. Oh, you got to check this out. And I'm like, what is that? Like, okay, it's kind of cool. You can manipulate the pieces. I guess it's whatever, right? It's like tic-tac-toe. And, you know, I finally watched some videos and stuff, and the game store, Isle of Games is my local place that I go to. You know, they had it on the used table for like $25. And I'm like, hey, you know, for $25, I'll get it. Like, it's not going to make me or break me one way or the other. And it's a lot of fun. I love it. We played the shit out of it when we first picked it up. So I don't ever fall into that, like, oh, look at that thing on Kickstarter. Like, I have to have that right away. Because for me, it's like a mechanics and a theme thing. And like, I almost never walk into the store and walk out with a game, because I'll look and be like, oh, that looks interesting. Let me go home and watch 10 videos and see whether or not I think I might like that one. Right. So, you know, like Gold West was, you know, 5 years old. I think War Chest is at least a couple of years old at this point. One of the favorites I've picked up, not so recently, but recently, Porta Nigra. Somebody posted on Twitter. They're like, hey, cool stuff has this for like $8. Then I'm like, fuck it, for $8, I'll buy it. Like, if it sucks, I'll take it up to the store and I'll get more in credit than I'm going to pay for it, you know? And it's great. It's so much fun. It's one of the Stronghold the classic series or designer series, I think. And it's great. Oh, it's so much fun. And it's funny. It's I'm off screen. It's the box. It's Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling. Well, I picked up Torres, which, you know, I'm opening it up and it has the same pieces, although they're a little bit bigger. I got the new version. And I'm like, fuck, wow, these pieces are like exactly the same. And then I looked at the box and I'm like, oh, it's the same designers. Of course. And it's really cool. That one's been a lot of fun too. That was a recent pickup as well. And I don't even know how old it's an old game. I mean, it's on a, you know, second printing now, or, you know, reissue. So, like, good games are good games. I think, Sean, you'd said it, right? Yeah.
I mean, and we sort of forget, you know, some of those things because we're too busy chasing the new stuff. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the new stuff. I like the new stuff as well, but it's worthwhile to go back and take a look at the things that we kind of skipped over, because your tastes change, right? Your experience and what you're going to enjoy is going to evolve and change. Like when I first started, you know, playing games, board games, like in a more serious fashion, there's no way I would have ever played a Euro. Like, hey, do you want to play a Euro game? No, I'm out. You know, hard pass. And now I'm picking up Stefan Feld games, which you know, playing Great Western Trail and stuff like that. Like, you know, far more crunchy, heavier games, maybe like lighter on theme, things like that I never would have. So there's definitely a growth. So revisiting things is worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think trying things that might not necessarily fit what you think might fit your style too sometimes really can be something cool, because like we've talked about this in the past, like we went to a small con a couple of years ago, and one of the guys we had actually played, he had taught us, it was one of those games where it was like a teach how to play. It was a newer version of Mall Madness. So if anybody remembers the old 90s Mall Madness with the Chichen store and stuff like that, like it had an updated version, and this guy taught it to us and we played it, and it was a lot of fun, and Logan liked it so much. He's like, this game is so much fun, and it's just so dumb. You're just going and, trying to get as, many things from different stores and stuff like that. And this one has actually like talks and stuff like that. So it was fun. And the guy came by and had an extra copy that was just old and beat up and gave it to Logan. He's so excited about it. And then eventually later on, he had come and pulled us aside and he's like, you guys look like you're bored. You want to play a game? We're like, yeah, sure. Guy seemed nice enough, and has this bag of games and he's like, yeah, what do you feel like playing? And we're like, we haven't heard any of these that he talked about, And he pulled out a game called San Marco, which is a little lesser known game by Alan Moon. And we were like, wow, Alan Moon made this game? That's interesting. We didn't know he made anything other than, what is it, Ticket to Ride? Is what the game said? Am I being dumb? That's him, right?
Sean would know if anybody.
Yeah,
It's certainly not me.
I was literally looking at Sean and he's blinking.
I'm hitting a BBG.
Okay, but anyway, so we're playing this game and it's like a territory game where it's an I cut you choose mechanic, and I'd never, I'd kind of heard of it, but I'd never played a game where it's the I cut you choose thing, and you have to, figure out. Do you really want this one good thing, or there's a bunch of other little things that you could get, for that side, and it was one of the and the game looks boring. I mean, it's because it's old. It's got that Milton Bradley kind of just like old school like snore, but like it was a phenomenal game, and I was like, God, I love this I cut you choose mechanic, and even these days, I feel like there's not that many games that have that mechanic. So it's cool to be able to just discover something that's like, I didn't even think I liked this game. And now it's like, it's a game that's out of print, and you go on, you find it on eBay for like $189. No, thank you. I'll wait until, somebody's sick of having it in their collection and sells it for like $40 or whatever. So, but yeah.
Have you played Makoji before? Because it has a similar aspect, and you have the little 4 chips in front of you, and you have 4 different actions you can do, and 2 of them are you put down 3 cards and your opponent chooses 1 and you keep 2, and then the other one is you put 4 cards out in 2 pairs, and your opponent takes a pair and you keep a pair. And then there's 2, and it's a good game, and I love it and I hate it. Because it's like, I don't want to give you any of these cards.
Yeah, exactly.
You only get to bury or keep place one of your own cards. You only get to keep and play one. Everything else is just back and forth, and it's
Yeah. Well, there's a game out there that we talked about a while ago too. It's called Sword Crafters, and you're actually crafting swords out of literal pieces, but it's an I cut you choose thing too. So it's like, but it cuts it in such a certain way that it's different from the regular I cut you choose thing. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't want to give you all these blue pieces to get more points. I'll just chunk it out here and do this. It's an interesting
hate drafting at that point.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is. It's like, I don't want you to have this one, but I also do not want you to have this one.
Yeah.
What's the lesser of the two evils, I guess?
That's what I like about at least a medium weight Euro style game like Gold West is you're like, I want to do this, but then if I take this one and you're going to take that one, and like there's just so many different ways to score points. It's just like that the puzzle of trying to figure out like what's the best. So then you're adding up like, well, if I do this one, I could score 8 points, but if I take that one and he doesn't take this one and I put this one here, I could score like 15 points. And then they take it and you're like, fuck, I should have did the other thing.
Yeah, well, talking about Michael Kiesling, like some of the Azul games are like that too. It's like just a pretty looking, nice looking game, but like literally you could do so many things that you're like, haha, take all of those, And it's like take some of those negative points and get people giving you a little dirty looks and like, this is supposed to be a beautiful, nice game. Screw you, I don't care.
I played that with somebody, and that's what they said. They're like, "Oh, it's a nice, relaxing. It's very, everybody's kind of like doing their thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, put it on the table. Let's see how that works out for you." Oh, you can't play.
You haven't
rounds?
played with
Dumb.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly how my wife plays it.
Yeah. That's the only way to play it, really. I mean, come on.
That's why I think it's so important. Like you said, Kurt, before, when you review games, you make sure that you play it multiple times. I think there's way too many reviewers out there who will just play a game once and then give their opinion on it. Yeah. But a lot of times a game can play so many different ways depending on who you're playing with.
Mm-hmm.
That you can have a completely different experience. Like it's simple games like Ticket to Ride, right? You can either have a fairly passive game where you're all just kind of doing your own routes and you're doing that, or you can play with me, who I will see where you're going and purposely go out of my way just to fucking cut you off. And it becomes a lot more aggressive game at that point. And so I think, there's so many games out there where it can either be a nice, quiet, passive, fun experience, or it can be a killer, cutthroat, fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna bring some like hardcore take that games the next Necronomicon. You have to come out so we can play, because it just might turn into a knife fight.
That's the hallmark. If someone says knife fight, I'm like, I'm in. There's a number of games I picked up. No idea about the game, but they're like, it's a knife fight. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny when you talk about like play styles and stuff like too. Like sometimes I'll even play a game where I go, I don't know if this is gonna win me the game, but I'd like to see where it goes. Where other people are going. I can't remember what it was, but I was playing with somebody and I can't remember. But I was like, yeah, maybe next time you could do this. And he was like, no, I want to win. This is how I win. This is always how I always will play. So don't tell me anything other than that. I'm like, okay, sounds great.
So I'm not a big fan of games where it doesn't matter what your opponent does. It's at that point, you might as well be playing solitaire. I prefer the games where everybody influences each other, even a little bit. Even games like Charterstone or Catan or Ticket to Ride, anything like that, where your opponent's moves, even though it might not directly affect you, there can be at least a tangential relationship between what's going on. But games where you're all just kind of doing your own thing, and why are there other people at the table at that point most of the time? So
that was my big knock on Sagrada. I almost backed it on Kickstarter when it came out, and then I was like, I'm not, like, it's not the right time. I'm just not going to get it. And then I had the opportunity to play it, and I'm like, maybe. So I borrowed it from the guy, at work, and I'm like, hey, can I borrow this for the weekend? Like, I want to get some more plays in. So we played it like 4 or 5 times in a row, and then I'm like, I just no, like it's just like a solo game, like you said. You're just at the table with a couple of people, and you can hate draft a little bit. Like if there's one green die, you're like, fuck, I'm gonna take the green die, right? Because I know you probably want it. You've got the green, green in the corners or whatever. But other than that, like
But that's such a resource limited game that hate pulling like that actually limits you more than probably your opponent. Yeah. I'm going to pull that green. I don't really need it, but at the same time, I don't need it, and it's screwing me over at the same time. So what's the point?
It's a principle, the thing.
We played Tabards of Tiefenthal recently, and it's a deck builder, and it's not super aggressive, right? It's more like you're building up your tavern and you're kind of doing your thing. But at the very beginning of the round, it's a dice drafting system. Right. So when we were playing, my buddy Josh was to my left, and so I'm drafting his direction. And before I pick anything, I'd look over like, what do you got going on your side? What do you need? And he'd like, quit looking at my board. Leave me alone. Just play your own game. Like, no, I got to make sure I'm limiting your options of what I'm passing you.
Right.
I'll take something that's okay for me that, that might be great for you. So, I'll do that.
No. It's funny. One of the questions or one of the topics I wrote down was whether or not your game tastes changed over time. It's funny you brought it up. I still enjoy light games, but PAX was like my first probably real big foray into like modern board game. We played, Lord's Waterdeep and Small World and all this kind of stuff. And we picked up zombie dice there. Like, this is great. You could play it at the bar. You could play it here. You just play it on anywhere, right? Like it's just a little dice thing. And now I look at it on a shelf and I'm like, wow, who am I going to give that to? Like, I would never play that game again. Like, it just, as much as a gamer, I like dice and you like the click and clack and the tactile and your, roll, like, how am I going to get the thing? I hate luck in a board game, because I want to be able to out-strategize you so that we both know that I beat you because I played a better game, as opposed to, oh, shit, I could never roll a 4, so I'm never going to be able to do this thing,
Yeah, that's when I did Dice of Crowns, that was exactly on my mind, that I wanted to have something that gave you at least a chance. Oh, you went away. Give you a chance to mitigate the randomness of dice rolling, right? So like you've got some out somewhere. So I think one of the more interesting times that we played, we were doing a demo with 2 other players and my lead artist, and I think it was like 3 of us had a total of 6. No, we had 8 different tokens that we could basically stop the other player that was going to win. And that's exactly what we did. We just kept going at him and making him re-roll and re-roll. And he finally did it, but we were able to, we felt like we had agency in stopping his win. And the fact that he still won, like, everybody was excited for it, right? So there was still the randomness, but it was like this big table, like everybody's gripped the table, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So that's the thing I do like about the random element of dice, is just that table, everybody stands up, like, oh my God, what's going to happen moments. But having some agency definitely makes the game better, for sure.
Yes, I love it for tabletop, right? Because, failures in rolling dice leads to, so much better stories than if you just succeed all the time, right? And it's like, whatever. Like, okay, we do the thing. Okay, what do we do now? But when you fail that acrobatics roll and you fall off the roof or whatever, like, it's just so much better.
Yeah, it's funny if you think about it that way too, because it's like if that was your real life, you roll a 1 in real life, something stupid happens, you're like, you hate it for the rest of your life. Well, in a game, it's like, oh, that's the best thing that's ever happened. So I always go back to I ran a Star Wars game with a couple of my friends, and God, they were rolling so well, and everything was going, doing just everything's going swimmingly for them. Get to the big boss fight at the end of the campaign, and they're fighting a guy that's in a ATST, and they're the one guy's on top of it, and he's plunging his lightsaber in the middle of it, and cuts the guy in half, or just kills the guy inside, and as the guy dies, he falls on top of the controls of it or whatever. And I was like, well, roll acrobatics or whatever they had at the time to get off of it. And he rolls a 1. So your foothold is stuck in the thing, and he plummets down with it. And then the other guy's underneath it, blasting it with his blaster. And I said, roll dexterity, get out of the way of it. You rolls a 1. So that thing falls on top of him. It blows up. The game's over. Everybody's
Well, you remember that game forever, right?
Yes, exactly. And the other ones where everyone's doing great, it's like, no one cares.
I mean, that's like with our Rogue Trader game. I play the navigator, and his
horrible.
big key.
He's horrible.
He's
can't
great
navigate out of a wet
he's
paper
great
bag.
up until the re-entry. I roll amazing every single time we navigate, except for when we're coming back.
Every time.
And I plunged us into a sun. I crashed into a spaceship, into a space station. Every single time we come out, and that's what he's known for now. And so it hasn't happened yet, but I'd be upset if he actually rolled good on a re-entry roll.
Venari would be shocked. Well, and it's funny, like, so a failed dice roll in our very first Day Trippers game for Nash, like, really informed the whole trajectory of his character when he failed the psyche rolls in the dream world. Like, that just defined how that character was going to be. And, it was a one shot when we played it. We'd never know, we didn't know we were going to play it again. It turned out it was such
for
great
3
fun.
years.
Yeah, like now it's just it's whatever. But yeah, I mean it was great, and because of that, the story is that much richer and that much better than if he'd like made the roll and like, oh yeah, there's talking flowers and like, oh, there's a giant baby, it's whatever. It just wouldn't have played out the same way, and it wouldn't have been nearly as good or nearly as memorable. So yeah, definitely cool.
Yeah. But no, I missed a bit of the convo. Could I backtrack slightly?
Sure.
Just only because when I cut out before, we were talking about the evolution of game taste, and I just want to point when I first started playing board games, it was more so like the simple strategy ones, and now I never thought that I would be a worker placement lover. And now I am. Now I can't wait to like sink my teeth into like Scythe and all that, and now I'm an old man apparently. So there we go.
No, I like that too. Well, it's even helped. I think it's helped us in our podcast too, where like when we first started, it was basically just. We just had a microphone and an opinion, and who knows if it was right or wrong, and we just did it, And nowadays, it's like I actually feel like I can have a conversation with somebody and feel like I know what I'm talking about. Fake it till you make it, kind of thing. But even when we first started the podcast, like we were playing games that I never imagined I would play. Like I think like the first game that we really got into was like Race for the Galaxy, and I was like, it was just one of those games where I was like, I never thought I'd be playing a game like this, and I never thought I'd have the smarts enough to actually, keep up with everybody.
Right.
So it's not, it's not that I still don't make stupid decisions, but it's cool to be able to play certain things and just be like, wow, this is fun. And I can enjoy it, and you can play those, 2-hour games every once in a great moon, and be like, wow, this is a fun experience, where back then it was just like, how many things can we just, break out and play and play and play. Well, nowadays, back then it was a lot easier to play a game. Nowadays it's like, okay, well, I got this and this and this, and I got that, and maybe I can get this in, and who knows. So
I can't stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning playing board games anymore.
God. Oh my God. Even go to a convention, like literally we just went to a smaller convention, and man, it used to be like we get there and we'd be like, okay, we're going to go from 10 and we're going to go until 9 o'clock. And now it's like, go from 10, it's supper time. Should we just go to our room? Yep, let's just go to our room. We go to our room, eat pizza, and then maybe play a game on the bed, and then just watch TV and go to bed, and then live the next day. So.
Yep.
It's funny. I was telling Sean before we started. I just came back from the Savage Cruise with the Rocky Mountain Savages, or the Savage Worlds play group, and they run these excursions all over. So we just went on a cruise with Shane Hensley and Daryl Hayhurst and Clint and Jody Black and a bunch of people from Pinnacle and stuff. And I had played about 40 hours of games in 6 days, because they're 4-hour chunks, so you get 2 games every day.
Yeah.
And by Sunday, I was like, I just want this to be over. Like I love to play. Like it's so much fun, and it's it's social interaction, and you get to experience all these different worlds, all this different stuff, and all the games are great. All the players are great. GMs are great, and it was too much. I mean, it was really like by the end of the week, it was like it's too much FaceTime, and it was great. I mean, everything was great, but it was like, fuck, I'm so over this right now.
Yeah. Well, it's like you get to that certain point, and then finally you realize, like, you can tell some of the people that have been at a place way too long because they get this, that you're looking, you're talking to them, and then all of a sudden they just go. And it's just like they're at a light and they just can't stop staring at that light, and you're like, oh no, go get some rest. Cool.
I guess I'm the oddball out here because I'm the get up at 8 a.m. and stay till 3 a.m. and then go back to sleep and do it all over again. We're going to Dice Tower West, so I'm leaving tomorrow for that. And last time we went to Dice Tower West, we were literally the last people at the convention. Like, we literally shut it down.
Wow. Wow. So you must have had, okay, so either A, you drink too many monster drinks, B, you don't sleep so you don't have to worry about it, or
D, all the above?
Yeah.
No
Sean is secretly an automaton and doesn't actually need sleep. He just needs to recharge his batteries for 3 hours.
Yeah. Exactly. Must play everything.
That was last year at Rincon. It's like about 45 minutes from my house up in Tucson. So I didn't get a hotel because I'm like, it's close enough. I'm just going to drive. Well, when you leave at 1:30 and have a 45-minute drive home and a game at 9 o'clock the next morning, 3 days in a row, again by Sunday, it's like, maybe next year I should get the hotel. I don't know.
I'm having the same thought. There's a new con starting up in April or May, I think, and it's less than an hour away from me. And I'm like, all right, theoretically, like, I could drive there and drive back, but at the same time, that's 2 hours of driving on top of all the gaming I'm going to do and everything. I'm like, is at like 9-10 o'clock at night, am I really going to want to do that hour-long drive back? Like,
it sucks.
Exactly. Yeah, you're going to be one of those tragic people that like, it's like, oh, man dies from sleep deprivation. What was it? Oh, board game convention. Oh, okay.
At some point, I have to realize that I'm not 19 anymore, and I can't do that all the time.
It sucks. That was our Saturday night at Rincon. It was Shane Hensley and Daryl Hayhurst and like Ron Blessing, and I don't think John Wick wasn't there, but like all these people, we started out a little circle around a table and we were drinking and eating and whatever, and then a couple people would show up and it got a little bigger, and then the circle got a little bigger, and by 1 o'clock we had like the whole patio. There was like 30 people, and you're like, I'm hanging out with these guys. Like, I'm not gonna go home, right? Like, that's just dumb. I'm just gonna. And of course, they were all staying at the hotel. But finally, it's like, look, guys, I don't want to, but I gotta go home. Like, it's too late.
Yeah, and that's why, like, you get that thing where it's like, God, I don't want to stay at the hotel. It's so expensive. And then you think about it and you're like, well, then I have to drive and I have to park and like all it. And it's, and then it just sometimes it becomes a no brainer. It's like, well, shit, I'm just going to save some extra money and just stay at the hotel, because then I don't have to worry about it. I can just drunkenly walk to my room and pass out. So.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. That might
you figure you're probably spending like $25-$30 on parking alone anyway. So why not just double that price and get a hotel room?
Yeah.
Actually, parking's free for Rincon. It's nice to park. They have it at the hotel, so just shoot up and park. So
fancy.
Yeah, not too bad. Well, considering all the time constraints and size of board game collections, one person in particular, how do you determine what games get to the table on any given day? Like, is there, a checklist? You check your BGG to see what you've played in a while. What do you guys have any sort of routine that you go through?
For me, we game pretty regularly through the week. We like if we're gaming on Thursday, we'll actually talk about it on a group chat, find out okay who's all coming, and then start throwing out game ideas like I'd like to bring this, I'd like to bring that, and then see if people are interested. Usually, you'll get shout outs like, "Oh, I'd love to play X" or "I'd love to play Y," so you can get an idea for that. If we're going to a con, we're going to bring a bunch of different games, things that we want to play, we haven't played, or something we know that everybody would enjoy. So like I'm going to be bringing just one. I'm going to be bringing some games I haven't played yet. Like I'm bringing Lockup because I just learned that and it looks really cool. And nobody's played that, but everybody's really interested in it. So I try to bring a mix of things that I think, well, what is the group that's going to be around us going to enjoy playing that I would also like to get to the table.
Very cool. Yeah, for us, it's like, well, I've got two ways of doing it because I play games with my wife, and then I have a game night normally on Tuesdays with my buddy Mike, and when I'm playing with my buddy Mike, like we'll do that thing where we're like, what do you want to play tonight? I don't know. What do you want to play tonight? And then it's like one of those. It's just like we're all we're both just kind of going back and forth until one of us says, well, I just got this game. Oh, that that sounds fun. Or like a thing we had been doing is we would do, if we had gotten some new games, we would shuffle in a new game in between doing some regular games. So like my buddy Mike he's got like almost everything legendary, so we have a legendary night, and then legendary Marvel, sorry, and then we like the Pathfinder deck building game, and he'd always have the packs of that, so we'd have a round of that, and then there was something else too. I can't remember exactly what it was, but so that would kind of go back and forth. As far as like Tracy and I would go, we would do the thing where like we have a ton of games that are unopened that we need to play. So we're like, we're going to do that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go through all these games. We're going to make sure that they're played and that we want to keep them, but then every once in a while, someone will go, one of us will go, okay, it'd be nice to play Quacks again, because it's like, I know Tracy loves Quacks. So let's play that as a game night thing. Another thing that I've experienced now that I've had to transport 3,000 games from upstairs in our house to the basement of the house is that, hey, maybe we should take a look at maybe shrinking it a little bit if there are some things that I don't like. And we've actually done a really good job of doing that. It feels like it's like a quarterly thing where every once in a while we'll just take a look and be like, okay, do we want this? And it's literally a yes or no, like yes or no. No waffling, it's like, except for the stuff that hasn't been played, like we will let it sit until we actually play it, because we don't want to just get rid of it on a whim. But yeah, it's actually also kind of gotten me into wanting to play some of the older stuff again, because I've seen some of these things where like I walk past them like every day because they were upstairs in our bedroom, so I'd walk down to go to work and be like, oh, that looks cool, and so every once in a while I would see something, but most of the time I just, blindly pass by it. But now I can see everything. It's all down here, so I can see it all. And there's at least 10 games I go, oh man, we should pick this out and play it again. So it's nice to have it in a spot where we have a designated space where we can just go out and pick something. Where before it was kind of like it was there, but it was almost kind of hidden, to where we were just kind of like, it was just a bunch of clutter. So,
what about you, Jesse?
I mean, Legacy. So
that's fair. Yeah.
Our game, we're pretty much picked out for almost a year. So, but I mean, at home, I have 4-year-olds, so we play a lot of Uno and Go Fish. And basic card games that they can also, learn math with. So, but we also try to play games that they can help with to a certain extent. So, some of the simpler games, like we actually have done like Ticket to Ride with them and things like that, where they can at least match colors and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we try to, unfortunately, time is, we have like this much time every day. So we have like 20 minutes after dinner where we can play a game. So it has to be something short and sweet. So,
right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sean, you got me turned on to tracking gameplays. I use an app or whatever. Like I printed out a spreadsheet and, put all the games on there and broke them out
Old
into
school.
2-player and 2 to 4, 2 to 5,
Got your dot matrix printer out there. And
That's fine.
Yeah,
So it was funny. Last year was the first year that I did it. And we found that we played a handful of games a lot. And we're like, all right, well, we need to kind of like mitigate this a little bit. So for this year, we've really spread it out. It's like, okay, well, we haven't played. I just finally played Citrus for the first time with my kid the other night. I'm like, shit, I haven't played Citrus all year. Like we played it a lot, but like now we're like, okay, cool. Let's bring this one in. Let's bring that one in. Hey, let me take a look at your list. Cause I do the majority of my board gaming at work with a friend of mine. So, restrictions are it's got to be less than an hour from the time it hits the table to the time we pack it up and all that kind of stuff. But I purchase games that kind of fit that mold then. So I was so happy that Gold West played in 45 minutes. I'm like, sweet. We'll actually get to play it. But something like Port Niagara, like even in a 2-player, we only get 2 turns in because that's going to take an hour. And if we get that last turn in, like, it just gets past our lunchtime and, it leads to problems. But yeah, we've really started to like spread it out. My game collection is not nearly as big as your guys is. So it's a little bit easier for us to cycle through because I don't have 3,000 games. But before the list, it was like, yeah, we would play, like say Splendor 20, 30 times, like, oh, what do you want? I'll bring Splendor in again. All right, cool. Like we enjoy it. So we'll just like play it. We'll just play the crap out of it. But now it's nice to be able to sort of like see visually like, oh, geez, we haven't played X. Bring that one in, and it really kind of keeps things fresh. And like you were saying, Kurt, there are some things I'm like, oh, like Zombie Days, like maybe I should see if I could find a home for this because I don't think we're ever really going to play this. Like it just doesn't fit the style anymore. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Just a quick blurb on that. Like we had Zombie Dice back in the day because it was like when me and Tracy were just starting out gaming and stuff like that. We were like, oh, this is fun, quick game and stuff like that. And then same thing. It was just like, who can we give this to? We gave it away. And then this first Gen Con that we went to with Logan, we played Zombie Dice because we thought, oh, this will be nice and easy. Logan's like, we want it. He's like, I want it. And we're like, no. You got rid of that one already. Just like, yeah. It's funny. So how it all evolves and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I've owned Zombie Dice for years, and you got to the same point where it's like, kind of moved on from this, but so it just kind of went to the back, and then we were packing up, bringing some board games up to Maine to visit family, and we have a few younger nieces who are, they're like 7, 8, 10. And we're like, oh, this actually might be a good game for them to like intro and kind of get used to. And so we started playing that. And then all of a sudden my girls, like, they got into it real fast. And so now I find myself all of a sudden, I haven't touched Zombie Dice in like 5 years. And now all of a sudden it's in our, game rotation for after dinner play because it's something like, nice and easy and simple and quick to pick up. So it's funny how those games just kind of sometimes find themselves back to you.
There's an app that I posted, or not an app, it's a website, but it ties into your BGG list and it will actually spit out a bunch of information. So like, I track my plays on BGG. So it'll show me, these are the types of games that I've been playing. These are the designers that I've been playing the most of, or the designers that I have the most games from, or publishers that I tend to get a lot of stuff from. There's a lot of like interesting heuristics you can get from that. And it will also break things down by it'll show you your list, like, okay, here's all the 2 to 5 player games that you have, or the 2 to 8, or so it's useful on 2 different counts. Like if you're looking for something to play, like, hey, we've got 8 people, what do I have that would actually fit 8? And you just sort by that. Or you can go, well, let's see, what games have I been playing the heck out of? Oh, these 5 have been like huge in my play rotation. Maybe I can try these other ones that I haven't played as much. And it's even got a category for Shelf of Shame. So the things that you haven't played, which is, I tried to avoid that one. Like, I know it's embarrassingly big.
No, actually, I use an app called Nemesis that, it allows you to track all your games and who you've played against, and who's won the games and everything like that. So it's interesting to see. Again, I play a lot of games with my kids, so like my one of my daughters is my current nemesis because she's the one that's beat me more times than anybody else.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, it's interesting because it gives you a breakdown of every single game you've played and how many times you've played and who won, like what percentage and everything like that. So it's fun for that more competitive nature to track that kind of stuff.
That sounds right up John's alley.
Exactly.
It is, for sure.
So what you see is, we'll see if we can print out an Excel spreadsheet of that for you.
I use different colored inks for who I'm playing with, so I can know who I'm playing against.
There you go.
All right, Kurt's got to get out of here. So, Kurt, what do you guys have coming up on MFGCast? What are you guys doing? What do you got your fingers into?
Yeah, I got a couple of things going on. Like I said before, we got the review for The Astute Goose by Reiner Knizia. So that actually should be out tomorrow if you're listening to this on the 24th of February. And then coming up here pretty soon, I'm going to be talking to Jay Comier about Mind Management, the board game based off of the book. So we're actually going to be talking to him live on YouTube and going to be talking about that game. He'll show us a little bit about it, which will be cool. And then coming up here next month, we're going to start recording. John and John Neary are going to be a part of a D&D campaign that I'm running. Old West kind of theme called And Justice for All? ? So yeah, I'm really excited. I haven't GM'd D&D for a while, and I'm gonna put my own little spin on it, and I'm deathly afraid and very excited about it. So it might not come out right away in March, just because I want to put my little spin on it and put some Battle Bards music in the background to kind of make it more thematic. But it should be coming out to ear holes near you soon.
I'm looking forward to that. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Awesome. And you're a regular on the Fear Itself game here on the Legends of Tabletop Podcast Network.
That's right. The legend of Randy Anders continues.
Well, I'm telling you, we got to get T-shirts made of that.
I know. Seriously, I'm gonna find somebody and have them make a nice T-shirt.
We'll put it to the list.
Put it to the list. Oh, that's great.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming by tonight and hanging out with us for a little while. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a blast.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will see you the next time I see you.
Sounds good. See you guys.
All right. Bye. Later. All right.
And then there were 3.
And then there were 3. Yeah. So, talking about culling the collection and stuff, what sort of parameters do you have for what stays and what goes, especially when you get a collection that gets up over a couple of hundred games, right? It's a space issue, it's a time issue, it's a change in preference issue. How do you make those decisions as far as what you're going to keep and what you're potentially maybe going to trade for some other games that you want to play?
Go ahead, Jesse. It's
not necessarily an issue that I run into. Our collection tends to stay fairly small. I think I have maybe 80 or so games right now.
That's decent, though. I mean, that's not nothing.
Yeah. But there's games that we just don't play anymore, or we were talking before about taste changing, and how you might go back to a game that you used to think was really good and used to play all the time, and then you play it 4 or 5 years later, and you realize, oh, that's actually really simple, and maybe you don't get quite the same enjoyment out of it anymore, and so at that point, maybe it's just time to put it aside and move on. So I think more times than not, that's what happens with us. Is we'll pull at a game, you say, oh, we haven't played this in forever. Like, yeah, we used to play this all the time. Let's have fun. And you get a few rounds into it, and you're like, oh, this game isn't good anymore. Like, it's just.
Do you experience that with RPGs at all?
I know, mainly because your style. I think your game style more so influences the game in that respect. So the mechanics can come and go. I don't think that really matters. I think that more so it's the way that you approach the game means a lot more in that instance. So for a system itself, I'd say I can drop in that event pretty much any system that I've tried, unless, I mean, even when you're talking about older versions of D&D though, like, it's not necessarily an upgrade or a downgrade if you're moving from like 3rd to 5th, unless you're playing 4th edition, then it's a hard.
Hey, 4th was good. I like 4th.
But, with RPGs, I think it's more so, I think certain systems fit a certain style more. And so, you might not play it for a while until you have a specific campaign that you think would really suit that mechanic. So I think that tends to be a little different than a board game itself.
That's fair. I cut my teeth on second ed, and I don't know that I would want to go back and play that now. Like, sure. I really enjoyed 4th, and I like, 5th is fine. It's whatever. I don't dislike it, but I don't know that I would go back and play second ed.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it is, I guess, different than, I don't know, the way we play maybe would work. I don't know.
No, I mean, you make a good, like, I'm not sure if I really enjoyed playing my 3rd edition and my Pathfinder games. But given my play style now and just the fact that I used to play every single week. We used to play every single Sunday, and we'd play for 6-7 hours at a time. And now we play once a month for 3 or 4 hours. And so I think that our lives now give way to more of a simplistic style of gaming. So while I might enjoy the more crunchy old school games, I'm not sure I can necessarily dedicate the time and energy to playing them anymore. So,
well, but even like say Rogue Trader for the campaign, right? Like Rogue Trader is super crunchy, and the book is horribly laid out. But we'll play for 3 hours and not roll dice at all.
True, yeah. At that point, it doesn't matter what system we're playing.
Yeah. So I guess there's some of that, like it. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, I think, because it is different than the board game stuff. Yeah. But I wonder, as the new stuff comes out, or your taste shifts. Like, I mean, for the most part, no matter what we're playing, we're really playing a more narrative style of game, regardless of the setting and system. So I guess we're
basically just always playing a different version of Fiasco.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Sean? How does your calling work?
What's your collection up to right now? That's
You don't have to answer that.
Some disgusting thing. Yeah, I refuse to answer on the grounds of may incriminate. So the way I call things is I'll go through and look and see like, okay, what am I really going to play? Like, are there things here that just, I'm kind of mediocre on, like, it's a thing, but I've got things that do whatever this does, but better or more in interesting ways that I've kind of moved on past, or if it's just something that I'm like, this isn't going to get to the table. Like, this may be an interesting game, but am I really going to get to play this at all? Probably not. And then I feel like we're kind of lucky that we do a big thing for Extra Life. And so what we do is like we'll take everything that people are calling, like a lot of our friends, and they'll donate their games. And so we, kind of clean them up and make sure they're all good. And then we get them packaged up, and those are part of our Extra Life giveaways. So people can actually win those for, buying raffle tickets and stuff. So it's a way that I can kind of get stuff out of, my collection and that I'm not really going to use anymore, and, put it into other people's hands and generate some positive, stuff out of it as well. So, yeah.
That's cool.
That's what I do.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good kind of a mental trick as well. If you're saying, oh, should I keep this game or get rid of it? It's almost like, oh, well, I guess if it's going nowhere, then it might as well just stay on my shelf. But at least if you're donating it and it's that process of, if you're on the fence about it, you're like, well, you know what? If I might like this again, but somebody else will definitely enjoy it more. I think that, that's a nice little trick to give yourself that extra push to just get rid of the games that you're on the fence about.
Yep. It's definitely an incentive. My buddy Josh actually donated it. Insane that he did this. I couldn't believe he did it. But he did the backing for the big Batman Gotham City, like all in pledge for that thing. Yeah. And he donated the entire thing.
Wow.
Unwrapped. Like, he didn't unwrap any of it. Like,
that's insane.
I'm probably not going to get to play this, and as cool as this is, but I think it could do better and raise a lot of money for Extra Life. And so we actually had it as, one big giant thing. And wow, people threw tons of money trying to win that one.
Nice.
Which, yay!
Yeah, right.
Help out sick kids, and somebody got an awesome prize.
No kidding.
Yeah. That's really cool. But and you were saying, if you have, games that have similar, mechanics or similar, gameplay elements, and you maybe keep the better game. Like, I really enjoy area control stuff. Is that something where you're like, all right, well, like, these are the 5 best area control games that I have, and I want to keep these, and like, these ones do that, and it's fine, and maybe the theme's not so great. So, like, even though I enjoy this mechanic, I'm not gonna keep these because I know I'm gonna play these ones more.
Yeah, to an extent. I don't like put a number on it, like, what's my top 5 or top 10 or something like that. But I will go, this game does deck building. Okay, is it doing it as good as? Is there something else that I would rather play? Putting this together with all the other deck builders I have. Yeah, this one's going to fall by the wayside. Okay, I'll get rid of this one, even though it's okay. If it, right. I'll have a bunch. I do have a bunch of deck builders, but if things that'll make me keep it is the theme is really cool, I really dig the theme, or there's something about it that is very unique that I don't see in other games. So those two things are like big. Like, okay, I need to keep this game. If I'm working on something that is involved in that sort of mechanic, I will hold on to it so I can kind of go back and reference it. And then, once I get done, publishing that game, or, to the point where, like, okay, I've kind of gathered as much information as I want now. This one can leave my collection and go live with other people now. Be free.
Right. Well, that's cool. I have another question here that I did come up with. When it comes to, purchasing games, because, limited resources, time, whatever. What's your thought on either picking up a new game or an expansion to an old game? Or is there a distinction in your mind? Because the expansion then, adds elements to to an older game that maybe, extends that shelf life and makes it new again, or adds new game mechanics to a game. So in essence, kind of making it a new game. So there's a little bit of crossover there, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will tend to get both because I'm stupid. But for people that aren't insane, I would say take a look at reviews for the expansion. Not all expansions are equal as far as like what they bring to the game. Sometimes they'll extend a game's gameplay in a negative way, or it'll change up so many things that it's like, well, this is now a different experience than what I had originally, what I liked about it. Now it's like this whole different thing. But if you like that game, I'd say, yeah, go for the expansion. It's a way to get extra life out of something that you've already got without having to go as big as, buying a whole new system or a whole new game. And it also, it's like, you already know how to play this other game, learn a couple of new things, and then, you're kind of off to the races. So it's a little easier to get to table that way too.
Yeah, I found myself if I am able, when I'm able to buy something new, I oftentimes find myself just doing an expansion to a game that I know like you say, I already know that I will enjoy. I enjoy the base game, so chances are I will enjoy the expansion with few So the reason I looked is I couldn't remember the name of it. Dominion. Love playing Dominion. There's a ton of expansions. Only a few of them are actually good. And so that's one of the ones that I've realized, like, really have to research which one I'm buying ahead of time to see if it actually adds, A, it actually adds anything significant to the game, and B, if the things it adds are actually good. There's a lot of times in that where you'll find expansions where they'll be like, yeah, it adds a bunch of this stuff, and none of it actually help. Like, it's just a bunch of extra resource management stuff that really doesn't help the game at all. It just makes it a lot more convoluted. And you're like, yeah, never mind, I'll pass on that one.
Right. I saw that Tasty Minstrel for Crusaders has an expansion coming out. I don't know how far in the process it is right now, but I'm like, ooh, I think I'm probably going to get that. Because that's a great game.
Yeah, it is.
I did the deluxeified version.
Nice.
Which, so there's some back and forth on that too, right? So like, I know some people get upset because it's like, oh, I can only ever get this now and never again. And if someone decides to sell it, I'm going to have to pay, double, triple the amount of cost for it. It doesn't change the gameplay. The mechanics are the mechanics, but it's so good when it gets to the table and you drop those metal coins and, you have all these little upgrades. The cubes are, like metallic colored gold as opposed to like a flat yellow. And, it's like when I first started playing Splendor, when it was introduced to me, it was the original printing of the 2014 printing with the Ferris core. And I played it and I was like, this is kind of cool, I guess. And a couple months later, I'm like, hey, can I borrow that game? Like, I want to try that again. I think maybe I like that. And I borrowed it and I played it again. And we happened to be at Target one day and they had it and it was super cheap. And I'm like, I'm just going to get it. Because I try to get stuff at the game store, right? You want to support the local business. You want to support your community and whatever. And I'm like, shit, it's like $30. I'm just going to get it. And I got it home and I unwrapped it and I went, that's kind of weird. And you like tapping the chips all over everything in the house. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. Open up another sleeve and I'm like, fuck this game. I don't want this. This is stupid. So I went to eBay and I wound up finding it. I just emailed everybody, which edition is this? What year did this come out? And they're like, what? So I wound up picking it up and it doesn't matter. Like it's the same game, but just that couple of ounces different in the weight of the chips is like, I hate this now. So the deluxeified versions are great. And again, for me, it's not like a FOMO thing. Like, I'm not going to be able to get it. I'm like, this is going to enhance my enjoyment it's worth an extra, I don't know, whatever it was, $20 or something to get all the extra components and things. But
I mean,
I don't know.
Tabletop games are a physical medium, right? You know, you have an interaction with things. So I would always recommend to go with the better version. There are some people that don't care. Great, you know, that's awesome. Do you? But most people, you're interacting with everything. You know, you want the more upgraded pieces because it really does enhance your experience of the game, and it just makes it a lot more entertaining. It to a person that maybe isn't in the hobby, they're like, "What? This shouldn't matter." Like, well, yes, you're right. It shouldn't, but psychologically, it really does.
Yeah. Like you said, it doesn't affect the gameplay at all, but it still affects your experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like for tabletop RPGs, if you pull out Pogs, like 4th edition had the the Pogs for all the monsters and stuff, or you throw down a 3-dimensional mini that's the character that you're playing, like it's night and day. Like it's just not the same experience. And it doesn't change anything because it's all happening in your mind anyway. But like just to have that on the table, or like the 3D terrain, or that people do all the 3D printing and stuff, like it just enhances the experience to such a high level that, oh man, I can't see doing it another way.
I mean, when with RPGs, especially we play online now, so it doesn't really. But but when I play at the table. I wouldn't often do terrain because I from session to session I usually don't know where my players are going anywhere because they're insane. But like there have been a few times where it's like I knew exactly what was going to happen. So and for big battles I do that kind of stuff. So like I ran a one shot and it was going to take place in a tower, and so I could have just explained talked about the tower and did all this, but instead I worked from home, and so I had time, so I crafted a 5-story tower out of cardboard, and so every time they went to a new level, like I put a new level on the tower, and it became a spectacle, and it was fun to engage with and everything. And even I had at the very end that like the balcony, like if too many players went on the balcony, then it would collapse. And so I even had it. So like once they went off there, I could actually like bend the balcony down and everyone could fall off it. And so it was fun. And so that stuff does affect, like you said, it is a physical medium. So all that does affect the experience that you're having. So having, if you're playing a board game, if you have tiny little cubes that represent all your stuff, like it's nice to still have that representation there. But if you're playing a more deluxe version that actually has like little pieces that look like the thing that you're trading, or instead of having tiny little meeples, you actually have 3D printed figures, like it's an enhancement. Of course it's going to make things better for your experience.
Well, if you're looking to bring people into the game as far as like the theme, like if you want to draw people in, having actual representations of those things is a great way to do that. The more abstracted you are, the more you feel like I'm working through mechanics. Yeah. Right. So like you could do Santorini by just having 3 different size blocks and 2 pegs that you move around. Right. But you've got an island, and then you've got this, land mass that you're setting on the island, and you're moving your dudes around and you're building these buildings. Like you feel more of what's kind of going on, like you're a part of the thing that's happening because of the pieces. Right. So that's something that I think like designers and publishers tend to really think about. Like, okay, well, we want people to feel like they're a part of this world, so these are the things that we're going to make to kind of enhance that and make that happen.
Yeah, I think I do think that Kickstarter has kind of played a decent part in that as well, because when you're, the very first thing that catches you when you look at a board game is the look of it. And so if you're shopping for a new game and the only interaction with it is pictures, the designer is going to try to make it look as nice as possible most of the time. And so it's kind of a boon and a hindrance because you have so many of those games now that have the giant figures and the big pieces that are beautiful to look at. But at the same time, these games are now selling for $80, $90, $100. And there's no other real, it's either that or you cut it down and you have to ask, at that point, you have to ask, is my game going to be as much of a draw if I don't have these big eye-catching figures and this beautiful board for everybody to look at?
Yeah. Era's, I think, a good example of that. So, I don't know if you guys have ever played Era. Basically, it's a multi-dice chucking game of resource gathering. And there's a bunch of different types of dice, and as you create different buildings, then you can gather more different types of dice and get different resources. You've got a 3-roll system to gather up kind of resources you're going to get. And the big draw to it is that you've got this big pegboard, and the pieces that you're building a town, essentially, this like medieval town, and you're literally taking buildings and plopping them into these pegboards. So you get a small farm, or you get a big castle, or you get a big turret, or you get walls to go around your city. So you're building a 3-dimensional object. So it's big chunky plastic pieces. Looks cool as hell, right? You look on the table, you're like, oh my god, what are you playing? That's amazing looking.
Right.
Super fun, and it's a $70 game. The gameplay compared to the price is really out of sync. And so I hung out like, I love the game, it's great, I don't want to play $70 for that game.
Yep. Is it a game that they could have just used flat printed cardboard pieces to get the same gameplay? It would be the same exact. You
could turn it into a roll and write, really. I mean, if you really thought about it, because really your board is an upgraded piece of essentially paper, and when you're plopping those pieces in, you would essentially be marking on your pad. So like they could dial it way back, but nobody would be talking about it, right? It wouldn't be a thing. I was able to get a copy for $40 off CSI that they were selling like on the final day of PAX Unplugged. I'm like, $40? Yep, I'm in. Okay, it's a $40 game. So sometimes you watch for sales when you get that sort of disconnect. But
yeah. Well, see, that's the same thing with Reef. Everybody went gaga over Reef, and that's like a $70 game, and it looks like Duplo blocks. And I'm like, I don't think, like, I like abstract games, so like I'm in kind of on a base level, but I'm like, I don't know, I'm not gonna, like, it's just not for me. Like, I'm not gonna do it,
I think we were talking about this a little bit ago, a little ways ago. Wingspan. It's a beautiful game. The gameplay is really nice, but
it's okay.
Does it match? It's selling for $50, $60. Is it worth that much for a card game?
The components are really nice.
They are.
The eggs are super cool. The art's nice. The player board looks like your field notebook and stuff. Like the theme, all that surrounds the whole game is great. But like Sagrada, and I played it a bunch at RingCon. I played it 5 or 6 times over the course of the weekend. To me, felt like a solo game.
Yeah.
And there's some things like, you have a raptor and you catch a bird, and if I have a card that activates on a predator action, I can, collect a resource. There's a little bit, but for the most part, for me, it was like a solo game, and it just wasn't for me. And, co-ops too. Like, I can't do it. I've tried. I played a couple of Pandemic's not so bad. I played Pandemic a couple times. And it's fine. Like it's an okay thing. But man, somebody says co-op, I'm like, nope, I'm out. And I would play it, right? Like, we went to a meetup and someone was like, hey, I have this co-op game, you want to check it out? I'd be like, if everybody wants to play it, I'm in, sure, whatever. You would never see my collection. Like, it's just never. And there may be a couple. Maybe I would find something be like, oh, this is really cool. I really like. I get the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm a knife fight board gamer. Like, it's just.
Well, I get they call it like the Care Bears. People that really dig the multiplayer solitaire style games. Like, can I beat you? They're not looking for a solo experience. They are competitive, but they don't want someone to mess with their stuff. Right. So it's just like, can I outplay you? Can I be smarter about how I build my engine, or how I manage to make things happen or line things up, or whatever the system is. Like with Wingspan, how it's very engine buildy. Can I build a better engine than anybody else and be able to get out a win in this competition where you can't F me over and just blow my engine all to hell? I get that. That's fine. People dig that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not there. I want to jab you with a knife and screw your system up and blow it all to hell.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you could somehow combine those two, perfect.
There's a great way to do that, and that's one versus many.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we actually played. So Kemet. Kemet is a super aggro game. You don't want to turtle. If you turtle in Kemet, you're dead. Right. So you have to be attacky all the time. They put out an expansion called the Seth expansion, and they turned it into a one versus many. So I was Seth because, of course, and I'm the one. And so that means that everybody else is working cooperatively to try and destroy me. And then my goal is to try and destroy everybody else. I've got a couple different win objectives. So it's for those sort of experiences. Then it's perfect for that group. Like, you like co-ops, I like competitive. Hey, we can do both. You can do your co-op thing, and I can come and try and smash you.
I'm definitely going to have to look into that then.
Yeah, that might be something that would work for me. I don't know what that says about us, Sean.
That's the only way. There are some co-ops. Some co-ops I do enjoy, but for the most part, yeah, I like that competition. I like being able to mess with people. So, and there's some really great one versus many games out there. We turned Dice of Crowns and Dice of Pirates into a one versus many. They're The Others by Eric Lang and Colleen or Not. That's a one versus many where you have one person as the sin, the evil creature, and then all the other players are working together to try and destroy them. And there's some really cool stuff out there for sure.
Cool. Very cool.
That's why we used to love. I've played. Is it? I can't remember the name of it. Is it Betrayal on the House on the Hill? Yeah. Where, I enjoy kind of the at first it's the co-op-y type game, just exploring a little bit. I don't know how, but we've played that game probably not a ton, probably about 7 or 8 times, and all but twice I have been the bad guy at the turn, and I love it. I love it so much.
They have a legacy version of that, right?
Yes, I do.
I
think we need to finish the legacy games that we're playing currently.
Yes, yeah, of course.
The legacy version of that definitely is interesting.
Seafall's interesting. It's very divisive though. So our group was playing it when at the last job I was at, we played Seafall for a long time, and we were enjoying it. I was way behind. Like, there was no way I was going to in the winning. They've got an interesting catch-up mechanic that I'm not sure really works, and so I was pushing it. Like, I want to try and end up in the bottom each game to see how far I can go and how much this catch-up, because the catch-up mechanism compiles on itself. So the worse you do, the bigger head start you get in the next game. But it requires you to play a certain way. And if you don't, the game sort of stalls out for a while, which is kind of weird. Another thing that people had a problem with Seafall was that the first time you play it, your first game, you're very invested in your characters and all that. And then they basically it's a trainer game, right? We teach you a little bit how to play, and then basically there's a hard reset. And so those characters that you were kind of cool, hey, this is the thing, and then you're like, nope, now pick all new things. Like, well, wait, but all that's oh, dang it.
Yeah.
But you can get it dirt cheap. You can get it for like $5-10. Like they way overhyped it, and it did not sell well.
Was that one of the first Legacy games?
No, that was the third one. Risk Legacy was his first. Then Pandemic, and then they did Seafall, and there was a huge amount of hype because Pandemic Legacy just freaking destroyed.
Well, it's Pandemic.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did really interesting things with it, right? They took the system of Pandemic, but then threw in lots of exciting, things like, oh, we get to open this new thing. What's inside this? Mm-hmm. What things are we destroying now? Like, what crazy crap is going to go on?
I'm not a Legacy guy. I've never played a Legacy game, so I can't definitively. This is the worst thing. But from like a capitalist, social perspective, like, hey, let's sell you this game for $100 that you're gonna destroy and play like one, quote unquote, one time, and then you're never gonna play it again. Or we'll sell you this booster thing where you can get all your cards back and then you could play it again, even though you already know the story. Good idea, bad idea? Like from a designer's perspective,
I like it for a couple of different reasons. One, realistically, some games you're only going to play a certain amount of times anyways. So if you play Pandemic Legacy for 20 times, you've really gotten your money's worth out of it, right? There's not that many games that you're going to play 20, 30 times over, unless it's really small, plays quick. Those are the ones, you'll play 50, 100 times, whatever. But the bigger games, and you're going to play like a handful of times, likely, maybe more, but unlikely. And you can create, from a designer's perspective, you can create some really cool experiences. It's really shocking to someone when you're like, here, destroy this card. They're like, what? It's a game piece. I have to destroy it? Are you insane? We're playing, right? We're playing the Legacy for Clank. Clank Legacy.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. And we're destroying things in various ways, like, oh, I'm going to burn this card, or I'm going to cut this one up, or fold it up, or whatever. And we're keeping all the pieces in a bag, just to have like this collection of all the things that have been ruined, in the game. But the ones that I think that do it the best are the ones that allow you to have that replayability at the end. So Clank Legacy, once you get done, you've got a special version of Clank that you can play. You can keep playing the game after you're done with the Legacy aspect. Same thing with Charterstone. Once you get done with Charterstone, you can keep playing that one. So I think that's the better user experience. But still, I mean, having different options. I mean, Time Stories, that's kind of a Legacy game. You're not destroying anything, but you're going through it one time and uncovering new things as you go along. Once you've done it, you've done it.
Yeah.
You've already spoiled the story. Again, that's okay, right? Because it's like a book. Like you know what happens. Pass it off to someone else. Like, hey, you, my friend down the street or whatever. Like we play occasionally. Have this game because I've already gone through it. You can have this experience now too.
Yeah, it's like I have a friend that bought Mice and Mystics, and it's a great game, but it's very much a story within the game.
Yeah.
And so we played it once and we played the story. And at that point, it's like playing a module for an RPG at that point. Like we could play it again, but we pretty much know what's going to happen. And so the experience of playing it is lessened every single time. And so at that point, he did say we played it and he handed it off to somebody else at that point because we played it. We know the story. It was fun. We had a great time with it. And now it's time to move on. So, for a Legacy game, then to be able to give you that experience over 12 or 15 games as opposed to one or two, I think like you said, Deshaun, definitely allows you to get your money out of a game. Yeah. And I think sometimes it forces you to play a game more times than you would. We would have sat down and played Pandemic a handful of times, but we definitely wouldn't have played it as many times as we played Legacy 1 and Legacy 2. All told, we played those games 30 times, where over the course of a few years, where we definitely wouldn't have played Pandemic that many times. So
I guess I'm the odd one out then. I think we
Yes.
probably played Crusaders, I don't know, 25 times last year.
Wow, that's awesome.
I mean, in addition to, we play like 3 days a week, right? I mean, our schedules sort of cross over. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we play games. So I get to play quite a bit. But I mean, we played. So I backed the Showdown, the Samurai card game on Kickstarter a while back. And we had to sleeve the cards because they were all fucked up. We played it so much. It's a big stack, right? So you're always shuffling everything. We played, and we only cast, like, we would play a series, and whoever wound up winning the most at the end, we counted that like as a single game, even though we might have played 4, 5, 6 rounds. We played in it. Of course, that's like a super quick game. We played like 58 or 59 times last year. It was like we play. Like Through the Desert, which may take, a half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe, if you're like, I can't decide where I want to go. And then we would take up the remaining 20 minutes and play like Showdown. So like we played it a shit ton. So I don't know. We play games a lot. Like we played a lot of the same games over and over again too. So I guess I'm probably like on the low side of the bell curve on either side.
I think it's we have we have Unstable Unicorns, and it's a fun, really fast card game. And same thing. I don't even bother counting how many times we actually play it anymore. I count, like, when we play it, I just count that as one time.
Yeah.
Because when you sit down for a half hour, but you play the game 3 or 4 times. So.
Right. Well, to your point, John, I think there's experiences that you're getting by playing, especially like a game like Citrus or the more like medium weights kind of stuff. Playing those repeatedly, you're uncovering elements of the game that people that play like 2 or 3 times are probably not discovering.
Right.
Like there's usually like different strategies. Like, oh wow, I'm sure you're uncovering like 10 games in, like, oh crap, there's this combo that I hadn't seen before, or a way of linking things together that's really cool that your initial plays you're not going to uncover. So
oh wow, the first 10 times we played this, we played it completely the fucking wrong way. And like, oh, I checked the rule book and like we did this whole thing wrong.
There's that.
Happens done that more before. Often than I would like to admit.
Oh my lord. I'll out myself here. Throw myself under the bus. So at this, we were together for a weekend. We were doing some gameplays, and I had to jam, right? So one of the groups, they were wanting to play this bigger Euro game, Rise to Nobility, and I'm like, I guess I have time to teach you, but I have a hard out at a very specific time. So we'd set it up, and time's getting close. I'm like, oh my god, I'm trying to go through the teach really quick. And as I was setting up, like because of the player count, it added in a different element that I had no idea about. And I'm like, crap, I don't know how to teach this part of it. I'm leaving this out. I don't have time to teach this thing that I know nothing about. So I'm quickly teaching. Worst teach ever. I skipped different couple of things I just completely forgot about, and as I'm trying to rush teach this thing, they tried to marshal through it for about 2 hours, and they're looking at the rule book like, hey, he forgot this, he forgot that. I'm like, I'm so sorry, it's the worst stuff I've ever done. So yeah, sometimes mistakes happen in teaching.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a great thing about YouTube. Rodney Smith is great. I always try to go there first to watch it played to see, does he have this? and then I'll go there first, and then like descending order, I'll just do like random Google search and see what else I can turn up, because he's great. And there's other people that do it well too, and some people that really kind of just do review more than they do like actual playthrough. And it's a great resource, because I'll read the book and I'll be like, well, it doesn't say this, but it doesn't not say this. So I don't know, like it could be either one of these things, because it doesn't, like, I'm too stupid to figure it out. So yeah, it's great. That's my first go-to, and then I read the book, and then go through it, maybe set the board up, and maybe do like a couple of fake turns to figure out like, okay, these pieces are in the right spot, and like, okay, we're gonna do this and that. Okay, cool, I think I got it. And then like you had picked up Sola Fide, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting, and it's got a history aspect, and it seems kind of cool. And then I found it at Rincon at the flea market, so I got it for like $15 or something.
Oh wow!
I played it wrong for I don't know how many times, and then I'm like, we hadn't played it for a little bit, so I brought it in. I'm like, all right, let me review. No, that's wrong. Oh, fuck, we never did. Shit, we never did that, like ever. Because I even asked you, I'm like, this seems like really unbalanced, because like these things, like the way these things are working together, I don't even remember what it was at this point. Like it, I don't like, I feel like I should like it, but like this is throwing me off, and we didn't do it right. And then when we played it right, I'm like, oh, I like this now. This makes sense. Fuck.
Yeah, if I feel like a game is like something's not gelling right in this game, it's probably because I screwed something up.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and look at the rules, like, oh yeah, that's what I messed up. And oh my god, it's almost like the more bolded and more obvious that you make a rule, the more likely I am to miss it in my first play. So I've been trying to like actually like sit down, I'll get a game out, I'll set it up for 3 players, and like, okay, player 1 is going to have this strategy, player 2 is going to have this strategy, just to make it easy on myself. And I'll play through like multiple rounds just to make sure I feel like I'm, getting everything, and I'm like walking through the steps, like, okay, yep, okay, we got it. Just to make sure I don't have abysmal teachers anymore. It still happens.
So how many times when, and I've found this happening when, if I do an adventure in an RPG or something like that, but how many times when designing a game do you the rules, right? But so how many times do you hand the game to somebody else and they go, all right, well, what does this mean? Like, why is this over here in the rule books instead of here? Like, why did you word it like this? It doesn't make any sense.
A lot, especially for doing playtests. So when you're in the earlier stages, people definitely have lots of questions. Some people just go with it, like whatever you tell them, like, okay, that's the thing, sure, that's what we do. The more gamer-focused people, the deeper gamers, they'll ask you questions about, well, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? Or they'll offer, like, hey, you should add in this thing, or you should add in that thing. Sometimes they're on a good track. Sometimes, like, I'm always polite to people. Like, oh, thank you. I really appreciate your input. Yeah. But in my head, I'm thinking that's just the wrong thing to do in this game.
Yeah,
that's
you
not what this
clearly
game's
do
about
not
at all.
Of this game.
But it's not their job to have the grand scope of the game in their mind, right?
Right.
So I appreciate all the input that I get from all my playtesters, regardless of whether their input's helpful or not. The fact that they're playing and engaging with it is always helpful. When you're at the point where, like, okay, everything's locked in, and you've got your rules written up, then definitely, like, well, just set people down, go, here, read the rules, you teach me the game, teach me how to play. And then I can find out where things are wrong or things are broken or what people aren't figuring out for various reasons.
Nice.
And it's funny because in an RPG sense, if you forget a rule, get a rule wrong or whatever, like you just you trust in the GM to run a good game, and you just kind of roll with it. And then maybe after the session, you're like, hey, I screwed that up, or like, if the player comes like, I don't know know if that was right. I mean, it worked out like we had a good time. It was whatever, but like maybe we want to check on that. Right? We're in a board game. Like if you get something wrung, your game's just fucked. Like
Right.
you can't play it. You know,
like in RPG, if you get something wrong, that's something that might come up once or twice in a 3 or 4 hour session. But in a board game, if you get a mechanic wrong, chances are that becomes wrong every single round for the whole game. So, we're talking about like 2% of the game being messed up versus now 30% of the game being messed up.
It was funny. The guy I work with, they always break my balls. It's like, oh, you're cheating. I'm like, we both played it the same way. It was wrong, but like I was. Give me a break. Like 150 some odd games here. Like I'm the one that's got to buy them and learn them and teach them. You know, shit.
You get a pass if you're always the rules teacher. Yeah, come on, give me a guy a break.
Right.
You're putting a lot of work into it. It's, like a GM does, right? If you're GM, you're creating your scenario. You're thinking about like what the player's going to do. You're coming up with, story beats and different encounters, all that kind of stuff. As a teacher, you're kind of doing the same thing, right? You're learning how the systems work and okay, what's the best way I can explain this game to everybody? Like, what are the things that I need to hit first, and then I need to hit last, and what things do I need to really focus on, because it's important to know this aspect of of this mechanic or whatever. So we put a lot of effort into what we're doing. So thanking your teacher at the end, going, hey, you screwed up, but it's okay. We appreciate all your work that you've done. I think that's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I always consider like the first game, especially when I take something new to work. I'm like, this is like we're going. Victory points is the thing. So like keep that in mind. We want to get the most victory points. And then like, all right, so we have to do this thing and this thing and this and then blah blah. We'll go through it and be like, just ask a ton of questions. We'll just kind of like talk it out. Like maybe we don't even count this first game if it goes bad, but like let's just kind of work through it. And then like if I wind up getting a chance to play with my brother first, like, all right, I already played this and I kind of have an idea of like how I want to play it. So like just work it through and I'll give pointers, be like, like, oh, I'm going to take this. And I'm like, do you want to take that or do you want to take this? Because if you take this, it's going to fuck me over here because clearly my next move is to do this because, whatever. So we kind of like go back and forth a little bit. And I try to like help them with the strategy part of it, especially for something new. If I feel like I watched 2.5 hours worth of videos between Gold West and War Chest so I could prepare to play them. So I'm like, I think I got this already. And I'm already kind of like working a straw. Okay, well, if I do this and that, okay, cool. It's like I'm already going in loaded. And I want to feel like I'm taking advantage and being like, yeah, do this thing here. Like, all right, here's your pieces. Go ahead. You got to like play them to the board or do whatever your thing is. Like, all right. So if you do this, like just to kind of help kind of solidify the strategy. So they're like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand what's happening.
I almost feel bad if I win in a game that I'm first teaching. It's rarely that I do, but if I happen to, like, I feel bad. I won. It's weird because I do this. Yeah, I do the exact same thing. I'll point out things. I'll usually ask people first, because I don't want to like make assumptions. But I was like, hey, would you like some pointers, or I gives you some advice, and I'll be honest with them, and I'll usually try and use myself as the target. Like, hey, like you said, if you do this thing over here, that's really going to screw me up because see what I've got here? Yeah, I'm really wanting that thing. So if you take it, I'm effed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'll take that. Yay, I'm effed. Okay, I'll figure out something else.
You always got to throw the caveat out, though. Like, I really want that one, but I can also take this one over here. So just so you know, I'm telling you should probably take this, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to like still have a good turn.
Yeah.
So like, do what you want to do,
Yeah.
We have the problem with we got huge into Catan for a while. And to the point, like we own every single expansion for it. Not only the expansion, but most of the 5 to 6 player expansions as well. And we played with a group of people constantly, at least a couple of times a month for years. They moved away, and now we have no one to play with. And so we run into the situation of do we teach the game to these new people, but like we'll run the game for a while. And like how much will they really be learned? Because we've been playing it for a long time. We have our strategies. We know what we're doing. And the couple of times we've introduced new people to the game, like it takes them a while to get it. And like my wife, she crushes every single game regardless, even with people who do play all the time. And so like we're like a handful of rounds in, like I have 7 points, they have 3 points, and she's like, boom, 15, game's over. We're like, all right. Did you have fun? No.
Well, and that is kind of the thing too when you're teaching, is you want the person or people that you're teaching to come away with a good experience,
right?
And feel like, this was cool, and like I was in it, like I was starting to get it, like, oh, you won, but man, it was really close. Like if I would have done this one thing that you were talking about, like I would have won, as opposed to like, oh yeah, I beat you by like 60 points.
Right. I think it's a tough situation because we want to play the game still. And so it's that point where you have to realize I'm teaching this to somebody new, like you said, so I can't play the way I normally would. Like I have to kind of pull it back and allow them to do things that I normally wouldn't do, just to A, get them hooked, and B, to get them to actually learn the strategies of the game.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll go ahead.
Some of the things
I was just gonna say, a lot of times son of a bitch.
John, shut up.
I was just gonna say real quick. So a lot of times when we play, I'll like talk through a turn. Like I'll kind of like give my internal monologue. Like, well, I was thinking about taking this, but like this looks really good too. And like this might be short-sighted. It'll give me a lot of points now. But if I do that, it might give me more points later. I'm gonna do this. Especially when something's new, again, to kind of like talk out the strategy a little bit, to kind of like, kind of be in that headspace and kind of like give some of that information. So like, if he's not thinking that way, he's just like, oh, I'm just going to keep taking this because this is worth a lot of points. I'm just going to do this one thing. Be like, well, if you start looking towards end game, like maybe you want to invest some resources over here. Maybe you want to, take a look at these bonus cards or, whatever. Just try to like kind of talk that out. And, you lose sometimes when you play like that, but it leads for a better experience for the other players to like, have that, so it's a fine line. Cause you always just like, I want to win. Then I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to help,
If I know a game really well and I'm teaching people that I've never played before, I'll usually try to go for some really bizarre strategy. Like, okay, what happens if I do this strange thing? Or, look for some unique way to try and eke out points that is antithetical to how the game plays, or, is like, this is probably not the most smartest strategy, but see if it works. And if I'm doing something like that, I'll also caveat to everybody, like, don't really pay attention to what I'm doing, because I'm doing something that's probably not the smartest way to play. I will help you if you have questions and give you better ideas and strategies. Don't pay attention to me. Like, ignore what I'm doing. I'm in crazy town. So yeah.
No, that's actually interesting, because you get it allows you to get a different viewpoint on a game that you normally wouldn't if you were playing to win. You can kind of you can experiment with different mechanics, or look at a different aspect of the game, look at it from a different point of view, and you might actually end up walking away with a new experience and a new way of looking at the game.
Yeah, totally.
And it speaks to what you were talking about earlier about, when you get those, 10 plays in, 15 plays in, to uncover different parts of the game where you can, look at something weird and go, well, this is probably dumb, but this is an interesting thing to kind of parse out and see what happens and how does that affect, the gameplay. And like Jesse said, come away with a different experience then.
Yeah.
definitely. Cool. All right, we should probably start wrapping things up here. We're like 2 hours already. All right, so Sean, what kind of things you have coming up for Thing Games, Thing12 Games? What are you guys working on? What's new? What's happening?
Lots of stuff, as always. So we've got Dice of Pirates coming out probably in April. Should be hitting Kickstarter. Or Dice of Dragons. Jeez. Dice of Dragons. Dice of Dragons. Yes, thank you. Like I said, probably coming in April. We've got the 3D printed prototypes, and we're starting to reach out to people. I'll be getting people, reviewers, early copies. We're going to Gamma. We're going to Dice Tower West, mostly with our podcast, the Board Game Alliance, and we're going to be there from Tuesday through Sunday for all kinds of gaming craziness. And then I get back, and like less than a week later, I'm heading off back to Nevada so I can go to Gamma for Thing12, and then showing that off to different publishers and reviewers and store owners and all that kind of stuff. Mostly focusing on Seals of Cthulhu and our upcoming one for manufacturing, the Dinos Not Assembled game. So that's going in. And there's a couple games that we're working on that we're going to just straight publish and not take to Kickstarter. One of those is called Puppy Pile. So it's...
This is a game right up your alley, right?
The most adorable looking art that we've been able to put together. These really cute puppies, and you've basically got this big row, and they're all fighting to be in a bed, and so you're jostling around the dog's positions, and you've got a secret dog that you're kind of like focused on, and you're trying to make sure your dog can be the one on top, not at the bottom, and there's all kinds of craziness. There's a little bit of take that to it too. It's really fun. There's another one they're working on called Matches. It's another one that we want to self-publish. We're doing some really interesting things with the box and development design of that to make it look really cool. It's going to be loosely set in the Seals of Cthulhu world, and I'll just kind of leave that out there. So yeah, there's a lot of things we're working on.
Nice. That's cool. I'm assuming you're going to come on when Dragons comes out. Maybe we get Badger on again.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. To get out there. We're working with two different, some other designers as well, because like Pirates and Crowns has a tie together, a game that you can play with both of those. With Dragons, you'll be able to play Dragons versus Pirates and Dragons versus Crowns.
Oh, so nice.
You're essentially getting 3 different games when you're back for that one. So
I was wondering whether because I know Pirates and Crowns you can play together. I was wondering if all 3 would fit together simultaneously, or if it was going to be sort of like, this one and this one, or that one and that one.
We may be working on something that allows you to have all 3 together at once.
Interesting. Exclusives.
Yes.
No, that's cool. Very cool. Anything else you want to plug? We've got links in the show notes for Thing12. So,
actually, I'm going to email you the link for that app that I was talking about that lets you basically take your BGG collection and plug it in and get lots of heuristics. It's really, really cool and really useful. Just if nothing else, if you're just setting up a game day and you've got X number of players, sometimes it's kind of difficult to figure out like what games you have that fit into that criteria. This is great for that. So I'll give that to you, and you can put it in the show notes.
Cool. Awesome. I have all my games separated by like player size. So like,
wow.
It gets a little dicey after like 2 to 4. It's like, do I put the 2 to 6 with the 2 to 4, or like because the box size is the same? Well, like the 2 players are all separated from everything else. And, whatever.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm not OCD at all.
No.
All right, Jesse, what are you up to?
Same old. I'm on Legends all the time.
True.
And we're still pumping out Monster Hunt Cast episodes. We actually just had a new one drop this week, episode 13. So, and we're just plugging along with that, trying to get more listeners and more followers and all that jazz. And yeah, just hoping that you guys don't die anytime soon.
Well, we've already put that to the test once already.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or at the very least, if you die, it's a heroic death. That's
Fair. You want to give a synopsis of what the podcast is?
sure. Why not? So going on the theme of legacy, it's basically a legacy podcast that feeds off of the previous one that I ran.
The Dragon Sisters.
Yep, Dragon Fisters. So it takes place about a year or so after the collapse of that world, the collapse and rebuilding of it, and now all the continents are all split apart, and there's dangerous and deadly creatures wandering around, and new monsters and new people and everything. And so everybody is kind of huddled up in spaces behind their walls, and the party is part of the Hunters Guild, whose job it is to basically explore the region around them and discover the new deadly threats and either tame them, move them, or eliminate them if necessary. And so far, you really haven't done any of that, but learning experiences. It's the learning experiences of a brand new team. So
and this iteration is based, I guess, at least loosely on a book called Monster Hunt, right? It was published by who? Who's the author?
Yes. So the Val Cyrene. So I got the idea for it by there. It's 100 Monster Hunts. And so it's basically just giant charts of 100 different little adventure ideas. So he gives a synopsis of what it is, and so I've actually turned those into the posters for the hunts. So I have you guys roll up a certain amount, and that is what gets posted on the wall of the Hunters Guild. So
nice.
Yep.
And this is like what, a 20-year game that's been taking place over multiple
not quite
different
that long,
systems?
about 12 years.
12 years.
So,
okay.
Wow.
Yeah, we started with third edition, and then moved into Pathfinder, and have dipped into Iron Kingdoms a little. Is it Iron Kingdom? Yeah, Iron Kingdoms a little bit, and into now into 5th edition. So it's the homebrew world that I foolishly started up when I first started DMing, and
then when destroyed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you first start, I had never played D&D or any other RPG before, so I had no idea about worlds, or even that there were modules that existed that I could have run. So I just started running my own homebrew, and it was the best idea I've ever had.
But I think that's how a lot of people start, right? A little bit different. They start with the modules. They're like, oh, this is cool. I want to run this thing. And, I don't have to prep anything,
right.
Everything, the maps are here. Everything is here. And then, once you kind of get over that hump and you sort of get into a routine, and you're like, I want to tell this kind of a story, and, sort of, blossoms into all right, well, I'm going to use this module kind of, but then I'm going to add all of this stuff. And then that sort of dradually expands into oh, I have this whole world now all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's absolutely what happened too, is, during Dragon Fisters, the whole second campaign was loosely based off of an old AD&D module. So
the alt campaign? The alt campaign?
No, when the main campaign, when they crossed the mountains and went over into the Highlands, that's all kind of loosely based off. I can't remember what it's Into the Wastelands or something like that. So that, and then the third campaign, the third arc of that is also based off of the Kingmaker Pathfinder series loosely, and so you steal.
Yeah,
it's what
that's
happens.
what you do.
Yeah. It happens in every aspect. It happens in board games. It happens in books. It happens in RPGs. So
I was lucky enough to be a part of the alternate campaign on the Dragon Fisters, and now to be part of the Monster Hunt cast. So if Monster Hunt ever ends and you start another podcast, then I'll just have to, jump in on that too.
Right.
I guess.
Right. In a few years, when everyone's dead, start up a brand new one, and you'll be part of that as well.
Nice. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. It was a pleasure to hang out. These ones are fun because it's just kind of like, let's just bullshit about like whatever thing. So it's nice to get a chance to sit and talk, right? Because like you Jesse, you're in Boston. Sean, you're in Washington. I'm out here in Arizona. So like it's great to be able, if you can't get to the cons together and hang out and hoist a beer, this is like the next best thing. So I'm glad that you guys are able to jump in and kind of hang out for a couple hours.
Yeah, we've covered the entire country. Holy crap! East Coast, West Coast, and kind of Central.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I love with the Monster Hunt. You have you in Nevada or Arizona, and then I have family that we play with in Chicago, and then I'm in Boston, and then Kevin is over in England. Yeah. So I think we span like 7 different time zones.
Yeah, Kevin plays. So Kevin's in our Rogue Trader game too, and he gets up at like 2 in the morning to play, and then when we finish, he goes to work.
Wow,
it's dedication.
Yeah, and it's funny. We've probably told the story on the air, but so Kevin. So I used to be on a pod. I've been on every podcast now. I used to be on a podcast called Nerdbound, which is kind of where I met Jesse. Well, not kind of. That's where I met Jesse.
Yeah.
And Kevin was a listener of Nerdbound, which was Neil's podcast. It's like onions. So layers upon layers. So
it's all inbreeding.
Yeah. So when I started the podcast, of course, I called Neil and I'm like, hey, you got to get in on this. I'm like, Jesse, hey, you got to get in on this. Like, let's do like a whole thing. So when we started doing the actual play stuff with Oscar, the campaign for whatever the fuck the name of that, I can't remember the name of the system because I never played it back in the 80s. The sci-fi thing. Anyway, but the campaign died. And I'm like, shit, what do? I don't have, like, the queue's not that big. Like, fuck, I already committed to running all these games. So I talked to Neil and I said, hey, can I run some of those old Nerdbound games? But just the stuff that I'm in, right? You got to be on brand. So I started running those. And out of billions of people on the planet, Kevin heard the podcast. And I'd scrubbed all the Nerdbound bumpers and stuff out. And he like tweeted at me or sent me an email or something. He was like, hey, was that one of those like Nerdbound? Like are you the guy from Nerdbound or whatever? I'm like, yeah. Neil's like on the thing. He's like, oh shit, I used to listen to Nerdbound way back when. And I'm like, holy shit, what are the odds that you would find the podcast like out of all the podcasts in the world? So I'm like, shit, well, you gotta like jump on now, right? So like then he jumped in and joined our Rogue Trader game. And Kevin's run a couple of Call of Cthulhu scenarios for us too. So that was like, it was the most bizarre happenstance. Mm-hmm. And it was just so cool then to like bring him into the fold as like a former listener of Nerdbound 12 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago to have him find and come to the show. Like, it's just a really weird bit of synchronicity. It's very cool.
Now, that's what's so cool about the internet now is that, that there's such a camaraderie that happens within so many places. There's not, especially like board games and podcasts, you could be very contentious. You could be like, people are either going to buy my game or your game. So why should I talk to you? Or people are going to listen to my podcast or your podcast. But that almost never happens. There's so many people. Everybody is just so friendly and so welcoming and so helpful that it's nice that it took that turn instead of the more adversarial aspect. So
yeah, that's been my experience as well, and it's just so cool to be a part of that. Like we had, Ross Payton on and Caleb Stokes on when he was doing Red Markets, and these are like the OG guys. Like these guys have been around since like 2008, 2000.
Right.
I cut my teeth listening to these guys, and it's like, hey, would you be interested? Oh yeah, come on, it's cool. Like, I mean, when I was on Nerdbound still, and we were, trying to help them get more exposure and do whatever, like I had sent Ross an email, and I'm like, hey, like, would it be possible to like jump in and hang out and like, I'm trying to help these guys out and like, trying to get more exposure and just kind of like, get some pointers and stuff. And he's like, yeah. Like, shoot me an email on Friday. We'll do a thing. And I'm like, really? Like it was like, it's that easy? Cool. Like, cool. We had Casey Wayland on like 1 billion downloads for We're Alive. Like he doesn't have to come on this show, but like, he came on, like we had a great conversation. Like it was just the coolest thing ever. And he was very, like happy to be there, just like had a good time. And it's such a cool community.
mm-hmm.
And I've never experienced that sort of like, oh no, I could never like do your thing. Like, why would I do your thing?
Right.
Which is very cool. And I kind of feel like for Kickstarter stuff, like, and it's obviously much more competitive because you guys are all in business, but there is still some of that overlap where you see like with, Matt Mercer bringing more people into the hobby and, more people to listen to podcasts and stuff, Kickstarter sort of had that same effect. I feel like for board games where like it's bringing more people to the table. So there's still that competition between, maybe TMG and Come On, more so than or Simon than like say for you guys, because you guys are doing like smaller box games, things like that, where it's not so much of a direct competition.
Sort of. I mean, you're all competing on the Kickstarter platform for visibility and all that sort of stuff, but it's not that super adversarial competition. Like you were saying, I mean, it really is working together. Like, I've had people give me pointers when we were starting out as far as Kickstarter goes, like, telling me things that I hadn't thought about before. And I do the exact same thing. I pay that forward and I'll see someone, hey, my Kickstarter's up, they'll post it on Facebook, some of the different groups and ask for input, and I'll jump in there and like, hey, here's some things that you might want to do differently. And here's why, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll link them to Stegmeyer's blog, because they probably didn't know about that. Or if I see someone's Kickstarter that's up, I might actually like jump in and tell them some stuff that like see that they can probably tweak a little to be a little bit better. Stephen Bonacore from Stronghold Games, one of the things that he was quoted as saying is that the rising tide floats all boats.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very true. Like, there's just that people that are gamers play lots of games. So it's not like, hey, you got my game, you're never playing another one.
Right.
Like, that's not happening. So, you can play my game and play their game and play his game and her game and, and have fun together.
Right. And the chances are is if somebody buys one game, but then they have, say, they've retweeted you about your game, or you've retweeted them, or even a little interaction like that, that might make them, once they like that game, that's a connection that they may like, okay, well, if I like this and this developer also likes this guy, maybe I'll go over here and try his game as well.
Yep.
So in that case, being friendly and helping each other out can actually benefit you. So
yeah, it's almost like not being a dick makes it a little more palatable to people.
It's weird how that works. If we could only bring all of that forward. Well, now that we restarted the show. Well, yeah, definitely. I love having you guys on. I love getting a chance to chat board games and RPG stuff and just other stuff off the air. Like it's just great to like connect and reconnect and hang out. And I appreciate you guys coming out and spending the time.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We should probably do this a little bit more often.
Agreed. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, there's links for everybody's stuff in the show notes. Jess, I should probably throw a link for your Twitter in the show notes as well. And,
Yeah, why not?
and for you, Sean, I didn't think about that. I just did like websites. I'm like, let me throw website stuff.
I run a podcast. Nobody goes to my website.
That's true. I know the feeling. Right. Twitter's where it's at.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, I want to thank everybody else for tuning in and checking this out, downloading and all that kind of stuff. If you could leave a review on iTunes or whatever your podcatcher of choice is, that stuff is super helpful. And for Monster Hunt as well, if you're into D&D, if you like that kind of stuff, please check out Monster Hunt, check out Jesse's podcast. And if you like it, leave a review for that as well. Just helps bring up the profile, the visibility, so that we get noticed and maybe on someone else's radar as well. We do have our sponsor, Birds of a Feather Coffee Company. They have the Legendary Brew. It's a smooth, easy drinking medium roast coffee. It's roasted to order, so it's not sitting around anywhere. So when you put your order in, it'll be roasted shortly after. So you're going to get it as fresh as you can. I suggest doing the French press, but if you're not into that, the drip is tasty as well. I've had it that way as well. So please check them out.
Legends10.
Use the promo code Legends10. You're going to get 10% off your order, and shipping is always free. You could also use that code Legends10 on their other Birds products. There's a link in the show notes for that. But if you go to tinyurl.com/legendary brew, it's going to take us right to the Legendary Brew page. And then if you click on the Birds banner at the top of that, it'll take you to the regular page where you can find the Night Owl blend, the Morning Lark, and the Hummingbird. It's a decaf, a light roast, and a dark roast. The dark roast, the Night Owl blend, was my favorite before the Legendary Brew because, you got to buy your own stuff. Yeah, there's a joke there, and I'm just not going to take it. So please check out all that stuff. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next. Oh, one more thing. Scratch that. I'm going to have to edit that out. Our Patreon is up. It has content on it. I've been posting fairly regularly. We're reaching the point of synchronicity where all of the games are going to merge and be caught up to the current timeline. And then we'll be posting as games are happening. Older games are not separated so well as far as having a distinct post show. So some of the stuff that goes up there does not have a distinct post show. And there's too much of a queue for me to go back and edit it. So it is what it is. But everything moving forward since the end of last year is in the new format. So there is a distinct and separate post show that's available on Patreon. So please check that out as well. If you feel like throwing a couple of bucks at the show, that's great. We're going to do this anyway for spite. So even if you don't throw any money at the show, you're stuck with us. So good for you. And we'll catch you next time.
Peace. Thanks, everybody.